We're going to explore emerging global food and beverage trends in both developed and developing markets, including sustainable consumption and packaging, insects as food, and technology and how it's affecting our behavior. There's been a big concern about the growing population and the world's consumption habits. By 2050, the world population is predicted to increase from 7 billion people to 9 billion people, which is nearly 30%. By 2100, it's 80% likelihood that the global population will be between 9.6 billion people and 12.3 billion people. That is an awful lot of mouths to feed. So the following slides ahead are going to be about some insights about global consumption and behavior and consumer attitudes. They surveyed 6,224 consumers in 6 different countries, which included Brazil, China, India, Germany, the UK, and the US. 2/3 of them in those 6 countries said that as a society, we need to consume a lot less to improve the environment for future generations. In terms of the US consumers specifically, this year, Cone Communications surveyed 1,000 American shoppers. Another US study that was recent from this year was from the International Food Information Council. They surveyed 1,005 Americans aged 18 to 80. From a European perspective, their habits are changing drastically. Europeans are ahead of us in terms of recycling and their eco-friendly behavior. The September 2014 Eurobarometer survey of 28,000 respondents from 28 member states of the European Union. Looking at Asia, Weber Shandwick surveyed 3,200 consumers that were conducted in Australia, China, Korea, and Singapore. Now let's look at some marketplace activity. I think these are just some interesting examples of what's going on and what the future has to hold for us. Well, root to leaf cooking is kind of the evolution right now, and we're seeing a lot of chefs strive to use the entire plant so there's no waste. Some of you may be familiar with Dan Barber of Blue Hill Stone Barns. Well, his new thing is this vision of pairing chefs with plant breeders who can provide the farmers with their own seeds, literally to enable them to breed for flavor. So recognizing the demand for sustainable products and practices, here are just a few examples. Many of them are focused on sourcing, recycling, and waste reduction. To conclude the Sustain to Gain section, why should you care? Well, first and foremost, the demand for responsible manufacturing processes for sustainable sourcing and packaging is going to continue. And as we see that large consumer packaged goods are the industry's bread and butter, and they're the ones looking at their environmental impact, we're going to see more ingredients from sustainable sources, and in turn it may affect your product formulations. And we saw some examples of the edible packaging or no waste packaging. They may behave differently than what already currently exists. Let them eat insects. I would just like to preface this section that although I do foresee this trend happening in the next 10 to 15 years, I am not going to be an early adopter. Etymophagy is part of a healthy diet in Asia, Africa, Australia, and Latin America, while US and Europe are lagging behind, and we consider it very unappetizing and has that big ick factor associated with it. This slide is just to give you a better visual of who's eating bugs where. There are a variety of companies focusing on breeding food-grade insects to meet the demand, and there are a slew of organizations that are promoting bug eating. So I'd like to think that this is more of a fad than a trend, but insects are appearing on the US and European menus, and here's just some of the latest. So there's been quite a focus, particularly more on the US, for startups for cricket and cricket flour, because of the protein that it has. So why should you care? I think you should care because it's going to be the next wave of food. Insects as an ingredient in everyday foods are estimated to be worth $350 million in business between US and Europe in the next 10 to 15 years. Protein's the popular buzzword in every food right now, and insect flour is next. And since restaurants and bars are experimenting with insects, there may be new textures and flavor profiles that you have to think about when you're formulating. So now for our final trend. We called it high tech. With consumers' hectic lifestyles and on-the-go behavior, mobile technology has enabled us to be reachable and have access to information 24/7. And our habits are changing from how we shop for food and how we cook it to where we order it and how we pay for it. So now we're going to review of some of the consumer findings about online grocery shopping behavior. BrickMeat's Clicks findings are based on a survey that was done in 2013 of 22,000 US shoppers across 6 retail brands. In Europe, Syndicate Plus Research interviewed 250 European consumers from the Netherlands, UK, France, and Germany. In Asia, Weber Shandwick surveyed 3,200 consumers in Australia, China, Korea, and Singapore about their shopping behavior. Well, convenience as a buzzword with consumers' need for immediacy has been driving the increase in the use of technology in grocery stores and quick service restaurants. So technology is not just influencing our food, but it's also influencing production and labeling of our food. And it's not just food that we're seeing, it's smart tools and different ways that we're interacting with our food. Well, technology, as we know, is what moves all industries forward. And smart foods and tools are where the market's heading. Mobile apps are going to continue to change the behavior of how we shop, cook, eat, and pay. As if prepackaged foods and quick service can get any faster or more convenient, I think that the demand for speed is going to continue and that we're going to see more apps that are going to help us interact and prepare our foods. And last but not least, as 3D printing emerges, your formulas may actually have to be impacted. You might have to create new flavors or textures specifically for that technology.